And, moving on to a more lighthearted segment of the podcast is that when we talk about eco farming, right? Now, many of us stay in very humble, of course, comfortable, but yet humble flats here in Singapore. I really do want to know, can you do eco farming at home? Now, prelude to this whole thing, or just give background. Now, I'm trying to grow small little vegetables in my, you know, balcony out here, which is 2 square meters long. Okay. Or what a sorry excuse for a balcony is just hanging it out there and praying to God that something is going to pop out of the soil. Okay. I have no experience whatsoever. I'm trying, hopefully. But I did get one batch. And to be honest
Mhm.
with you, whoever is listening out there, farm to table is no joke. If you can get it that fresh, I to be honest, right? People say that vegetables don't taste like anything. Trust me, vegetables taste like something. When you get it that
Yes.
fresh, you're gonna taste it. Okay, so I've got some rosemary, some basil, some dwarven bok choy growing over there,
Yes.
and some spring onions
Amazing.
that I kind of go up there. So what was cool is that I love going down the rabbit hole of throwing coffee grounds and whatever in there just to put nitrogen in or whatever. But can someone, in case of a zombie apocalypse or anything like that, grow their own food and be
Yeah.
sustainable in their own balconies in silo? Is it possible?
Right. So, Edric, yours is a great example, right? Of all the things that you mentioned, you had bok choy, rosemary, basil, and some of these herbs, right? The question for me is not whether it's possible. I have a small garden at home. Like, I also live in a flat, and I literally tied together shoe racks to elevate it to the
Mm.
window.
Yeah, you
And
got to
I've
MacGyver your
grown
way
a
through.
bunch of things. Yeah, so I've grown a bunch of things like kale, ladyfingers, tomatoes, and things like that because a lot of us who first start farming at home, we are drawn to things like herbs, right? We're drawn to things that are easy to grow in excess and abundance, but they don't actually make up too much of your plate, if you see what I mean. You might take
Mm.
rosemary, united basil, put it into your like marinade and things like that. And the question is, how much does it take for you to grow everything you need on your dinner table, right? To be
Yeah.
self-reliant. And I think that's a very good question to see Singapore as a microcosm, right? A lot of this conversation that got started, comes from the 30 by 30, right? 30 by 30 is
Mm.
producing 30% of our local nutritional needs by 2030. And 30% actually for the Singapore Food Agency constitutes local greens, leafy greens, eggs, and fish. But if you think about all of us, right, do we only eat leafy greens, eggs, and fish, right? There's so much of our diet that is not encompassed there. So what happens to the other 70%, right? That's my question. Where's that 70%? Are you able to grow rice at home? Are you able to grow potatoes? Are you able to grow your carbs? Are you able to grow your protein? Um, it's very hard. It's very, very hard, right? And that's no one's fault, but the fact that we live in a very, very highly urban environment, and we rely on other sources to get most of our food plate. So it's great to grow as much as possible, but I think what we will notice is that most of what we can grow at home in our little homes is supplementary. It is very, very
Mm.
supplementary, right? You could grow, and it's thinking about the human cycle of eating. If you're someone who eats salad 3 times a week, right? Are you able to have enough space to have lettuce growing up that you can harvest every 3 days and it gives you a continuous supply? It's very difficult, right? And I think that's the idea: is that you realize that farming at home gives you a project to work on, but then you're someone who eats every day, right? And everyone eats every day. So I think that's always the central dilemma, and you realize that farming takes on a very different dimension when you need to factor in things like growth cycles, when you need to factor in sort of the longevity of that food, right? If your farmer decides to stop working one day, it's not just one day gets affected, right? The whole year gets affected. So I think that's something that we don't quite see from farming at home. But it's great. I think growing as much as you can, you get that appreciation, like that much appreciation for people who do grow your food.
Okay. And let's just assume here that food security was completely out the window and we needed to start a project ASAP. All right. It's kind of like, uh, humans need to be shot into space if we don't do this. Okay. Everybody in your flat needs to chip in. How would you arrange them to go, okay, look, we need to grow everything on our own. If not, we're all going to die. Now, what are we
Yes.
going to do now? how would you organize the people in your flat and all your residents to be able to get something sustainable in X number of months?
No, yeah, I think that's a very good question. So let's say you have a block of flats that has, let's say, 15 floors, right? The
Mhm.
first 4 to 5 floors should be growing things like sweet potatoes, cassava, and some rice. You can grow rice in Singapore. And then I've
Why
seen,
first 5 floors?
so as you have to ration the rest of the building, right? So you
Right.
do sweet
Okay.
potatoes, cassava, and then you need some things like tubers, right? So you do things like carrots, tomato. The top floors actually should be the ones who have access to more sunlight. The rooftop, you should grow your fruiting crops, things like tomatoes, peppers, gourds, cucumbers, right? And fruit if you have space, that's great. Every other floor, you divide it equally between things like herbs and leafy greens, and it has to be rationed out like that. And each floor needs to sort of do that batch phasing, right? So that every week you can harvest a little bit, harvest a little bit, harvest a little bit. Yeah, so that's how I would do it. Lah. I think,
Okay. So
Singapore's
everybody start.
yeah,
Mm.
so if you do have access to a rooftop space, grow the most sunlight intensive crops, right? All your fruiting crops, your fruits, your tomatoes, your cucumbers. Yeah.
Okay, that's really interesting. So, okay, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard it here, all right, exclusively on the Epic podcast that in the event of a zombie apocalypse or if the world is in danger, grab a sickle and a shovel and look for Jolene. She's going to teach you how
I
to
think we
survive.
shouldn't do it. We shouldn't do it only in a zombie apocalypse, right? So recently, I was just thinking about a thought experiment with my friends. I was like, what if 2 years of NS in Singapore could just be a whole nation of 18-year-old boys farming, right, and volunteering their time to farm? I think that's a fantastic way of rethinking food, and for our boys to men to think about how much effort goes into your food. I think that's a very important part of security.
It is very true. It is very, very true. I mean, if you can take all of us in terms of those 18-year-old males, right, going out to the field, digging up trenches, living in the dirt, I don't see what's the difference of us and the Martian making poo potatoes.
Exactly. And it actually is a very, very good talent development pathway for the agricultural industry, because a lot of young people now, they say they want to lead a different life, not be stuck in a 9 to 5. But then when they actually come into an operationally intense job, they're like, oh, this is not for me.
Which is very true. Blue collar is the new white collar. You have to be able to roll up your sleeves, get dirty, right, and do a menial labor job if you have to. And interestingly enough, many high-profile individuals, right, or C levels, after they're done with their leadership tours and all this and their tenures, I ask them, what is it that you want to retire to do? By and large, I actually hear, I just want to tend to my farm. I want to have land in Vietnam to grow my own crops and vegetables. You know, farming now not just becomes sustainability, but it's sustainability of the mind and the spirit as well.
Yes, of
How
course.
different is that?
Yeah, no, it's really refreshing, but I think that also comes from the loneliness and desire for nature after living in a city for a long time.
Moving forward, what plans, if let's say you were given, if you had the choice to lead the 30 by 30 kind of initiative, right? What would you do as number one to tell all the citizens to do if it were mandatory to get to 30 by 30 faster?
Hmm. It's interesting. I think a lot of my efforts, if I had a choice, would actually be supporting the farmers, and helping them produce good quality produce that is affordable for the people. Because at the end of the day, for a lot of us, food is still a decision we make based on price. So you can't reverse engineer the system, right? You can't make the consumer sort of like, oh, we need to educate the consumer, then expect them to pay more, and then sort of like the quality that you get. Some people still go like, hey, how come I buy the $2 bok choy from Malaysia, it still tastes better than the one I'm buying from a Singaporean farm? That can't be the case. I think it's having people take pride in what's being grown here because it's actually good. And we have a very nascent urban farming landscape. So I think that's one thing. It's really giving the resources to the farms to be able to do the best work that they can do, and then sort of organically have people appreciate the quality, appreciate the freshness, because that's what you get with leafy greens and a lot of the produce, right? Is that when people taste the difference, it's because it's fresh. When you go to the supermarket and buy a packet of bok choy from Singapore and a packet of bok choy from Malaysia, you choose to pay less and take the one from Malaysia because there's no differentiation, right? The products are undifferentiated. You would rather just buy on the basis of price. But when you're able to actually give people good quality and for them to have something to be proud of, lah, right? I think that's really when you get a difference. You start a movement of people wanting to be connected to the best food that's grown here.
When it comes to Urban Tiller and your entire journey so far, right? What are you proud of?
Wow. I don't think I can say I'm proud of anything, really. Aside from really, really trying to, I think as a startup, like all the odds are stacked against you. And what I've tried to do as much as possible was to not deviate from the original value proposition, and to take care of my people as best as possible, no matter how difficult it is. I don't think I've done 100% a perfect job, but I've tried lah. I think that's what that's what I can be. I can say that I've been trying to do to my best of abilities.
Yeah, every day we keep learning, we keep growing.
Yeah, I think being a COVID startup is really just it's a different set of challenges, right? Everyone's life is in midair. You hire a team, and then they thought their lives were on hold. Maybe they had different plans, and there are so many uncertainties when it comes to just national policy around COVID, and there's always ups and downs that you have to just roll with the punches for that.
Yeah, you lead with courage and vulnerability.
I hope so. I hope
Yes.
so.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks, Jolene, so much for spending almost an hour with us. Now, there's always one last segment that we do in every podcast with our guests, and that is a rapid fire 10-question session known as the EPIC questionnaire. So, with that, Jolene Lum, are you ready?
I have no idea what this is, but yes.
Okay, let's go. Question number 1. One word that you love the most.
Kale?
All right, that works. One word that you dislike the most.
Onions.
If you could have a conversation with one person, fictional, non-fictional, dead or alive, who would that be?
Probably my grandfather.
And what do you say to yourself every morning in front of the mirror?
The kale is going to be good today.
You really love kale. Okay. Name one superpower that you'd like to have.
Teleportation.
Why?
Just, you can't afford to be in places more than one at a time. And traveling takes a lot of time.
Okay. Favorite dish to eat?
Fried chicken. Sorry.
See, this is the irony here. As much as we love fresh produce, right? Nothing gets away from fried chicken.
It's true.
I just don't know why. There's something so wonderful about fried chicken that it just trumps everything else. Question number 7. Favorite travel spot or the next travel spot that you'd like to go to once borders open up?
I have always loved Slovenia, and I would love to go back. I went to school in Europe near the Slovene border, and if you ever gave me a choice, I would always go back to Slovenia.
Question 8. Something in the arts that you've always wanted to do but yet to do so.
Juggle.
Juggle.
Yeah, I see it as a fantastic art form. I just do not have the coordination for it.
Question number 9. What does retirement look like to you?
Probably either working on a small farm, or making bread in a cafe. Yeah, making bread day after day.
You enjoy making bread?
Yes, I think it's a very, very therapeutic activity.
All right, cool. And last question. How do you want to be remembered? What's your legacy?
Okay lah, she tried lah. Yeah, she tried. I think that's nice. That's the best one.
I really like that. Okay lah, she tried lah. So grandmotherly. It's okay.
I know.
She tried. It's okay. It's okay.
I think it's comforting on every level.
Yeah, so good. And just cover yourself in a blanket of kale after that. All
Yes,
right.
and you
So
can.
with that, that was the epic questionnaire. And ladies and gentlemen, again, thank you so much to Jolene, the CEO and founder over at Urban Tiller Singapore. Now, again, if you are very, very interested, okay, in getting farm to table produce, go down to urbantiller.sg, get your orders in right now. And not only that, also follow them at Urban Tiller SG for some amazing recipes. Visit the website for great blog, great ideas of what you can do, or and maybe you could submit also what you shouldn't do, just to make it fun for them as well. Okay,
Okay.
and you know, for them it's one thing, but for me, do me a favor as well. Like, comment, and subscribe to at Epic Podcasting. Leave a comment below, and if you're watching this right now, leave a comment, or if you want to listen to the full version of this, go on to Spotify or anywhere else you got your podcast, where we've got an audio version for you as well. With that, all right, ladies and gentlemen, it's me. I'm Edric, and that I keep pointing the wrong way. Now that's Jolene over there from Urban Tiller. We will see you next week. Thank you so much for joining us. Bye bye.
Okay.